I wanted to open the archives and see Canada through their eyes again. See if I could find in it the Canada we know today.
How much do we love our country?
Many still consider themselves proud sons and daughters of the Empire.
Are we as patriotic as our American counterparts? Filmmaker Bob Lower presents some very interesting answers to those questions and much more in Shameless Propaganda.
If you're a documentary filmmaker of my age in Canada, the National Film Board was the standard, still is in terms of the past, and their history, the history of documentary in Canada.
The Film Board produced over 500 films during the war, and I've watched all but a missing few. Take it from me, you don't want to do this.
Lower wanted to capture the most compelling propaganda that affected our perception on who we were, and that happened to be between 1939 and 1945. At that time, the NFB produced more than 500 films, all of which Lower personally watched.
And I love working with old footage anyway, and I love looking at old footage, and so it was just a marriage made in heaven, although it was a marriage that lasted several years longer than was comfortable. But anyway, it took a long time to do. But I wanted to see not just how they pictured Canada, but what we really were like back then. And I knew if there was a way, we would find it in these films. These films were the first time anybody put Canada on screen.
In his superb narration, novelist Morley Callahan even brings the larger-than-life hockey stars
all the gold in the North Country couldn't buy you a membership in this club.
Into the circle of the common man.
Over the years, the NFB has become less a mouthpiece for government policies, showing more interest in telling the stories and presenting the issues that matter to Canadians.
So they became much less a propaganda agency and much more an educational, you might even say in a documentary terms, a conversational agency, where they carry on, and they still carry on, a conversation among Canadians about the events that are going on in the country that are crucial to all of us. And I think that's still a really, really important. We get far too much information from everybody else, and especially you know where. And this is the one place that is absolutely adamantly a Canadian production company that has no ties to American television, no ties to American sponsors, no ties to any kinds of sponsors, and gives us Canada as the filmmakers see it.
Far more significant to post-war history, and especially to my generation, is that they had mapped the country on film.
Lower's strong advice to eager filmmakers? Watch some NFB documentaries made in the 60s and 70s.
They took the trouble to find stories and develop the craft to tell those stories, but they also had the sort of guts to take a position on them. And they're not just sensationalism. They're not. They look in depth at things, and that's I think what documentary film at its best still is. You go to any of the big documentary festivals, it's those films that tell stories from a point of view, and tell stories that matter to us, that really connect with their audience. And I think young documentary makers should be careful of getting sucked into that kind of web ADD style of making movies.
So pervasive is their influence that some have called the documentary Canada's national art form.
For Go Winnipeg, I'm Tracy Koga.